And to know more about paraphilic disorder and how us as parents can protect our children from deviant behavior, let's have a chat here in the studio with our mental health practitioner and researcher. We have Maizan, Dianati. Thank you so much for being here with us. You're such a regular to our show. And as always, it's always that hard topic when we have you, indeed.
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. Paraphilic disorder, what's the common meaning of this?
Okay, so it stems from the concept of paraphilia. Paraphilia is a recurrent intense sexual arousal to atypical situations, objects, and individuals. Actually, to a certain degree, paraphilia, some forms of paraphilia can be considered as quite normal and healthy if they are being fulfilled between consenting adults and also in a safe environment. However, paraphilia can also progress into paraphilic disorder when there are certain threats to distress and harm towards the people who are doing it and also to the victims.
Yeah, especially when they're below age too, children.
So it, as you mentioned before, the interesting part, it depends on what the object of the object of the cause of arousal is. Now, what types of sexual behaviors or interests are associated with paraphilic disorders, or is pedophilia one of them? Because the problem is then it becomes a disorder when the victims, for instance, it becomes something that is not consensual and not healthy.
Actually, there are plenty types of paraphilic disorders, but the most common ones are exhibitionistic disorder, where people would get sexual arousal from exposing their genitals and also their sexual acts in front of unassuming audiences. And then there is also pedophilic disorder, where people's sexual fantasies and urges are revolving around children. And then there is a sexual sadistic disorder, where people would have some kind of excitement by inflicting pains on another person. And the opposite of it, which is interestingly happen commonly in women patients. So this is sexual masochistic disorder, where people would get sexually turned on by having someone inflicted pain on them.
All right, and we know we've seen a lot of blockbusters, movies, and whatnot. And
romanticizing these things. Some dangerous. And we thought we knew all about it, but you're the expert here. Tell us.
Exactly, it has become somewhat like a culture now, like a normalcy. So, what causes this paraphilic disorder?
It can be a combination of certain factors. From the biological perspective, excessive levels of androgens or sex hormones, and also chemical imbalances in neurotransmitters such as the serotonin and dopamine can influence someone to commit in compulsive sexual actions. And then, other than that, from psychological perspective, people with certain mental conditions, such as antisocial, narcissistic, psychopathic, or schizophrenic disorders can also have more tendencies to engage in this atypical sexual act because they have lower sense of reality and moral.
So it means they have more fantasies, right? And they want to make it more realistic to them.
And then other than that, like social factors such as the prior experience of abuse or negligence from their loved ones can also influence this type.
Yeah, because then they come out looking for more elsewhere.
Right, but we're living in a country, especially in the Eastern world, where we're talking about exhibitionists here, where it's not the norm, right? We know that we have to, we have to be modest and whatnot. But now we're seeing this more relevant nowadays.
Yeah.
What causes this?
Is it suppression?
After 2 years, almost 3 years of pandemic, and it's time to like be out and about.
Because actually for them, it's quite hard to control this
the urge,
impulse. So like although they know morally they cannot do it, but since it's uncontrollable, so they always look for a way to satisfy the urge. So that's why, like as what we saw in the news, like they try to make it secretive, like making like a PlayStation rental place. So yeah, like in order to fulfill those desires.
It's very attractive to children, by the way. Rental PlayStations and whatnot.
But you're making it sound like it's something they don't have control over. It's like an addiction, you may say. Is there actually a way for you to cure this particular disorder or help them go through this? Because it feels like the more they, they have access to fulfilling their fantasies, let's say, the more they will continue to do it, and the more they continue to look for it.
So there are possibilities to cure this disorder, but combination of both medical and psychological interventions would be needed. So when someone is suspected to have these indications of paraphilic disorder, medical professionals should perform like a thorough examinations, for example, like hormonal laboratory examination, physical examinations, to really determine what are the root causes for this disorder, and then like they would determine whether medical interventions such as like SSRIs or anti-hormonal medication would be needed to suppress the sex drive. And for the psychological intervention, cognitive behavioral therapy, that helps them to address what types of triggers that can awaken this unproductive sexual thoughts would be needed, and to help them in a way, like to help them to alternate their thoughts so they can produce more adaptive sexual behaviors.
Right, and you were mentioning before in regards to the causes of this paraphilic disorder, that the abuser was once abused or was once a victim. So now they can propel as a victim to become an abuser. So could this also happen to the victims?
There might be a chance, although it's not like it's not applicable to all of the victims. But let's say at that incident, like, because we cannot control like our excitement, right? Like, so what if during the abuse they can awaken, like they can enjoy that like in some way, although they don't like it, but like some excitement can be awakened. So they think like the only way to achieve the sexual pleasure is by committing the same one.
It's like a domino effect.
It is. If it's a trauma, there's a possibility. It's pretty scary, but how can we prevent that from happening? So what would the treatment be for the victims to cure the trauma, to prevent such a cycle from continuing, to stop that domino effect?
So of course, like for the treatment, like additional psychotherapeutic intervention would be needed in order to process the trauma, and also like how to anticipate this. If they have to face similar stressors again, how to respond to it like in a more healthy way, so they can form a new safer environment for them. But yeah, like maybe sexual educations for little children. I mean, like children, no matter how old they are, like it would be needed. So yeah, like age appropriate.
I was just going to talk about this. No, it was just funny. I just had this. I actually had a conversation with the family planning institution here in Indonesia yesterday, and we were just talking about this, and I'm such an advocate of this because, can I please address the elephant in the room? Is this possible because sexual interaction, or anything sexualized, by the way, is so taboo and is so suppressed in this community that people just cannot have a healthy conversation around it? So you've mentioned sexual education. Could this be a product of a cultural norm that is causing all these secretive cases of, paraphilic disorders, and we now see a lot of very scary cases come to light?
Yeah, like because when the attachment is not very secure between parents and children, like the common thing that would happen, like for the sexual predators, like they would inflict some kind of threat or fear towards the children victims. Like they would say like, oh, like you cannot talk about this to your parents because your parents will be mad about this. So in the end, like they are keeping everything to themselves, right? So they got manipulated by the sexual predators. But in the end, like if the communications between the children and the parents are more open, like they would feel more secure.
Of course.
Yeah, like to talk
they feel comfortable talking to their parents. And actually, if you're talking about sex ed, it should be coming from the parents first, I think. And because we're both mothers, we're really into this topic and this discussion.
And we have girls.
Exactly.
And boys.
Of what certain age, especially nowadays, especially in the younger generation nowadays, they become more mature, especially in their, of them to understand their body, and also in sexuals itself. They know the difference between female and male and whatnot. So from what age should we start teaching our children or introducing to them about sexual education?
So even as young as like 1.5 years old or 2 years old, like once they already can label the name of body parts, like we can start on that. So at least naming like certain private parts.
Not like a birdie, right?
No, but like with the actual
use
name.
the actual
Yes,
name.
yes.
So like we can talk about that and teach them like which parts of our body that can be allowed, that can be seen or can be touched by other people. So once like they were touched or they feel not comfortable, like when people are doing something to their private parts, like they would speak up about that.
Right. I have a follow-up question on this again because we're both parents and married. I had one case before where a friend of mine was telling me a story, which I wonder would this also comes to a paraphilic disorder because one of our friends were seen by the toddler or you know the child when they were doing a intimate moment in the bedroom, and it seems that when she grew older, that's where she have that nurture of sexual fantasies, by the way. And then when she was discussing about this, and she was like, because I saw my parents, and then she saw the parents enjoying, so she kind of got the thrill, even though she was a toddler, but then she still remembered. Could this then follow up through a paraphilic disorder?
Yes, like because again, like paraphilic disorder happen when one individual thinks that in order to get like a sexual stimulations, they need to do certain acts, and because at that time, like when this person is still a toddler, like she can feel the excitement, right?
From the parents itself. So these things can also happen in our own home because of us.
Yes. So parents have locks in your room. No, that's you know, I've read a lot of cases and why it's so important to teach children privacy as early as possible. And I wanted to ask, is this why it's always recommended for parents and children to have separate rooms from the very beginning?
Yeah.
Because we know that culturally Indonesian families love to sleep in the same room, and I came into a family.
With 3 beds.
Yeah, with 3 beds, 6 beds, you know. But my family never did that. So it was very, very uncommon for me to see, you know, hear stories of my friend's family or family members of ours who did that. So what is the reason that we actually have to separate our bedrooms from the kids? Is it like early education to protect them and thus have a healthier relationship in talking, or how?
Yes, so the first reason is of course privacy, because like on certain levels, like people would have their own activities and needs, so and it would be very different, right? Like the adults and also the children. So maybe the first reason is that, but other than that, yeah, like relating to the sexual behavior, because like children can only see, but sometimes like they cannot understand, right? Like what's really happening. So if some what's called like some condition happen, like let's say like your example, they saw their parents doing something and there are no explanations about that. Like,
so how do we explain if that does happen? What would be the ideal communication?
Because we're married, this is mommy and daddy.
But we have to act like it's a normal thing, right?
Yeah,
of course. Big way. It's a human behavior, no?
Yeah. So it depends on the age of the child.
Okay.
So yeah, like the younger they are, maybe use like more simple communications. So for example, like being straightforward. Okay, like these are the things that mommy and daddy do because, like, let's say, like it's the thing that can show our love to each other. Yeah. So
we're married. We love each other.
Underline married.
We're married and we love each other and whatnot. Because you know, with this questions coming from Kai and myself, I mean, some people probably might wonder, what is this about?
Yeah.
Then the paraphilic disorder, because you don't know the conditions that you made at your home can turn into this.
Exactly. Because if this is something that parents worry about, we also have to be aware, you know, the kind of contributions that you know can contribute to this kind of disorder.
Yeah.
My question would be like,
it's okay. Maizan's going to be here until a long time. Go ahead. Go ahead with your question.
Yes. So you've mentioned before, right, the importance of sexual education, and not just for the victims, but I want to ask if sexual education and being able to communicate about it healthily, have a healthy relationship with it, can avoid or prevent paraphilic disorders in the future.
Yes, it can. Like obviously, like the main thing, because like paraphilic disorder, although it's quite common, but it's still like small populations, right? But the main thing is to avoid or prevent the children to become the victims
Yes.
of this paraphilic disorder. And also, yeah, like if we can see like there are certain unexplainable behavioral changes, so we can also talk about that, like are you experiencing like anxiety or something, or like if they are exposed to something like some sexual content, like they would become like more comfortable to talk about that with the parents. So if we are introducing them to sexual education since the younger age, so yeah, like it can build up like a secure communications, which would prevent the confusions or the secretive development of paraphilic disorder, or the secretive idea of experiencing the sexual abuse. So by having open communications like this, all these all unfortunate events relating to the sexual deviations would be minimized. Right?
And never trust a stranger.
Yeah, and parents is the best protector for their own children. Thus, you know, we're living in an age right now, maybe they don't need to meet people. You're there 24/7, but they still go to school.
Yes.
And when they go to school, let's say they have friends. Maybe the friends had gadgets, and then they watch something. Even those games now has a lot of sexual content, which they don't understand, but they're seeing one man, one woman doing things that is sexual inappropriate. Now, how is the best way then that we can protect our children to not become the victim, and also understanding
the filter, the mind filter. How can we instill these mind filters to make them just aware what is good and what is bad and how to deal with it?
Yeah, and then avoid the paraphilic disorder at the end.
So again, like the boundaries. So like, who are the people that can touch you?
Okay, that's first.
Yeah, like what are the things that would be normal for children, like in terms of like friendship between peers. So what type of like physical touches, or like what types of conversations that would be normal for people at their age, and then like what type of normal relationship between these children and also adults. So they need to know like certain boundaries. What are the normal things and the the atypical things? So they would start to be able to determine. So like if they have certain type of behaviors, is it something that's actually normal, or is it something that's actually considered as an abuse?
Yes, because children are curious.
Yes,
they're curious beings.
And even and they're curious about themselves. Like at like 5, 6-year-olds, sometimes they come to you and ask you, it's like, is this normal when this and this and this happens? And I find it. I know it was just really shocking to me because I didn't get to, you know, go through all the process. And suddenly there is this 8-year-old in my life, but it's very interesting to know that they're also capable of certain discussions.
Yes.
Like we cannot underestimate, you know, the understanding that they already have and the amount of things that they can already understand, because it's getting harder and harder to control what kind of information they have access to these days.
Yes,
right?
at the end of the day, you have to be the safe haven for your children, for them to be freely communicate their feelings, what they have been through and whatnot, so they know that you're the first you're the first person to talk to.
How important is trust in this, and how can we show our children that no matter what you come through, we are okay in talking about this with you?
So again, trust is the basic foundations, because like it can be like a great tool to prevent manipulations from the abuser towards the children. And how to build up the trust is to make a comfort space for the children to talk about their stories, their opinions, their ideas. So don't scold immediately, like whenever they said something that can be controversial, because like there are reasons and curiosities, and it's something that common in every children. So make sure that you're being understanding towards the children. And like if there are something that needs to be straightened up, just listen first, and then like do the discussion after.
You can scream and cry inside your room, not in front of your kids.
No, that's the biggest challenge I find. Like not to be triggered by conversations that actually might trigger you, and to always keep a stable emotion when really speaking to your children. And I think it goes so many ways, because these small reactions can actually, you know, signal them, right? Oh, this is something
that's
I'm gonna poke,
make you
it's gonna make us worry or something. It's gonna be a weapon or something. So it's interesting. It's very difficult. Very difficult.
It is such an interesting topic, by the way. Thank you very much,
Thank you
Maizan,
so
for
much,
coming here
Maizan.
with us.
Thank you for
It's
having
always
me
a pleasure.
again.
Yes. If they would allow us, it's going to be 3 hours. Yes. The three of us right here talking about this. Right?
I think it's just to show the importance of having, a healthy relationship and healthy communication.
Yes.
And it comes down to that and trust. So please give your children the warm space they need to be able to take comfort and trust you in whatever it is they need to talk about. Big conclusion. Yes. Let's take a break, but we'll have more updates from the world when we return. Stay tuned with us on the C Morning Show.